Hello everyone, this is Andrew, AJT62, back for part 5 of the Melee tier list. We finally made it, guys. We made it to the A tiers, making our way down. This video should be mostly about Jigglypuff, no matter how long or short it is. We'll get started pretty quick this time, but before we do, I want to say again, I've organized these videos into a fantastic playlist, which apparently, actually a lot of you guys are using, unless all these 5,000 views are me. But yeah, you can go and watch these in order, and the YouTube autoplay is nice. So if you haven't seen the early parts, this is a nice way to do it. You don't necessarily need to have seen the earlier parts, but I would say there's definitely some concepts that I might have talked about in those that I don't necessarily want to explain again just for the sake of time. But that's up to you. Also, someone asked if I have a Twitter. Yes, I do. I don't. I usually mention it at the end of my videos, just very briefly. But yeah, this will be in the description. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can. But you don't have to, of course. But I've been tweeting more actively in the last year. Before that, I would really just tweet at people with questions and stuff. But you can enjoy my sick Majora's Mask background. And also this really funny picture that I tweeted the other month. 17 haunting childhood photos of the most evil people in history. And look at the guy on the right. It's the little baby Leffen. I thought that was so funny. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into part 5 of the Melee tier list. So before we talk about Jigglypuff, I actually have a very exciting announcement. You may notice something is a little bit different with this tier list compared to the last video and the previous videos. I did say that if I change my opinion, this list will change. This is a living tier list. Melee is a living game. It could change. So could you find a difference other than I updated the date at which I updated the list? Well, if you haven't seen it already, take a look at the old one. Look at this. And now this is the new one. Game & Watch and Ness have been moved above Zelda. So Zelda's gone down 2 spaces, I believe, yep, and these characters have gone up 1 space each, which I think is actually definitely the right move. In the last month or two, when I have gotten a chance to play Melee, playing Game & Watch and Ness a little bit more, I can really see that those characters have a lot more options and speed than Zelda. They have good grab combos, and we'll talk about that, or at least Game & Watch has good grab combos. Ness doesn't really, but he has good throws in general. We'll talk about those characters more in depth when we actually get down to that part of the list, which will take quite a while, hopefully sometime this summer. But yeah, I do think that's a very good change. A few people did talk about Game & Watch, no one really too specific, but that was part of my decision. But really just playing around with Game & Watch specifically, and I used to play Ness quite a lot, just as like a fun low tier. But more with Game & Watch, I feel like he's not too bad, other than just he has such bad defensive options. Like his shield, his tech rolls, his techs in general are really, really bad. But overall, he's offensively very good. Fair is a very good move. He's pretty good at edge guarding. He's a heavy hitter type character. He's just needlessly light. He has a needlessly bad recovery. If he had the actually parachute recovery, like he does in Brawl, I think that would actually be a lot better. Although I do like his Nair being the parachute. It's quite powerful of a move. But yeah, let me know, if you agree, and girls, if you agree with this change. I think most people agree with it. I think Zelda is just honestly quite bad. I mean, she has the gimmick of forward air and back air, but she is so slow, and she just can't even approach at all. For most characters, it's so obvious when Zelda wants to do anything at all that I could see. I think Zelda's still better than these characters, but she really is pretty bad. I mean, there's really not too many good Zelda players either. There's the Lake, which is he's a pretty okay. With Zelda, for Zelda, he's really good, but you don't really see the Lake performing that well. You had Cosmo, now Narcissa, and you don't. I think she's pretty much done with Melee and also speedrunning, which is really unfortunate. I used to watch Cosmo all the time doing Ocarina of Time 80%. Now she's kind of turned her back on the speedrunning community, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, she doesn't play Melee anymore at all. If she does play Smash, it seems like she plays Smash 4. So I don't know, but she can do what she wants. But yeah, can't really think of any other Zelda players that are significant. I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2, but anyway, let's move on to the topic of this video, Jigglypuff, which I know you guys are dying to hear about what I think of this character. So I would just like to quickly clarify what the A tier actually means, because we are now in our in a new tier. So you may recall with the S tier that I said that even though those characters can be better than one another, generally they all have matchups that are not. They don't have any matchups that are too horrible. Like Sheik versus Fox might be a bad matchup for Sheik, but it's not too bad. If your Sheik is good enough, you could overcome really any Fox player. But characters in the A tier are a little bit different. They at least have one matchup or two that is quite bad. For example, Falcon versus Falco is a pretty bad matchup. Ice Climbers versus Peach is pretty horrible. And for one of those characters to win a tournament, they would definitely have to overcome some of those really horrible matchups, which is a tough thing to do in Melee. That's why you see a lot of these characters being used as co-mains or specialty characters, because it's very hard to go through an entire tournament with them. It's just quite difficult. But they're still very good, and for the most part they have a good matchup chart. But we'll explain that more in detail as we go along. Alright, so Jigglypuff. Jigglypuff is a pretty polarizing character because, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but the reason it makes me think of that is because there's really only one Jigglypuff player that everybody knows, and that is by far the best Jigglypuff player in the entire world, and that would be Prince Abu. No, I'm just kidding, it would be Hungrybox. But yeah, Hungrybox is by far the best Jigglypuff, and by far the best Jigglypuff of all time. Mango, we can go through the history of Jigglypuff a little bit. First, there was King, who is a really great Jigglypuff player, at least for like the time, in like probably around the 2006 era, and he definitely was he wasn't the best player of all time of the era or anything, but he was definitely a threat back then. And I think he's pretty much done with Melee, and he's been pretty much done with Melee for like 6 years or something. I've never met him, so I don't know. Maybe, like I said, no one really ever quits Melee. Like every time there's a big post like, oh, this top player is retiring, the first thing I say is bullshit. They'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not even gonna like give this any attention because I know they're gonna come back, and I like that they come back. I don't want them to stay retired, but I think it's pretty stupid when people say they're retiring. Even me with my hand problems, like I'm trying to get better and stuff. Like I'm not gonna just say okay, I'm done with Melee forever. There's a small chance it could come to that, but I still love the game. But anyway, then you really had Mango. Mango pretty much once Mewtwo King was the best player in the world. Pretty much a month later, Mango came along and said, "No, I'm going to be the best player in the world." And he beat Mewtwo King Sheik, and he just won a lot of big tournaments. I think at EVO 2007 he got third to Ken and then Hugs, which was a really good placing for the time. I think that was 2007. I could be totally wrong. But yeah, he was by far the best Jigglypuff player at the time. And Hungrybox was around back then, but he wasn't as good as Mango. You could find some really boring videos of their Puff Dittos, and Mango just usually beating him pretty solidly. But then eventually Mango lost interest in Jigglypuff, as far as I understand, and started to play Spaceys with mixed results at the time, and even to this day, mixed results. I think it would be really cool to see Mango play Jigglypuff a little bit more, but I think he is pretty uninterested in the character. But I don't know, it could be really interesting. Like one of the people he struggles with the most is Armada, and especially Armada's Peach. So if he really trained up at Jigglypuff, that would be really, really cool to see. But his Spaceys are good too, and he can beat pretty much anyone if his Spaceys are playing well. So it's up to him. But anyway, then you had Hungrybox, who continued to play Jigglypuff as Mango was kind of phasing out the Spaceys, and really to this day he's been the best Jigglypuff player of all time. And you could say that now, not only the best Jigglypuff player of the time, but yes, of all time, I would say. He's also gotten a lot better in recent years. He went from like a top 5 player to a top 2 player. Even in 2015, I actually was kind of annoyed. Melee on me, I think, gave him a rank of 5th, despite him getting like 2nd in EVO and all these big tournaments. I thought that was incredible bias because maybe I don't know if it's an East Coast West Coast thing or anything, but I thought he should have gotten a much higher ranking than 5th, and I was proven right actually this year and like later in 2016 because we do see him actually either getting 2nd to Armada like he just did at Summit, or winning actually a lot of these tournaments. He won DreamHack, he won 5 Gods, he won Pound. I'm pretty sure that's about it for his big wins recently, but really him and Armada go back and forth, and he didn't win Summit, so you couldn't really say he's the best player right now, but he's at bare minimum 2nd. Like he just rips through every other player there is really, which is especially the Fox Fox players, which is not so easy to do with Jigglypuff. So why is Jigglypuff herself pretty good? There's a multitude of reasons. Most of them are actually pretty simple. Probably the main reason is that Jigglypuff controls the air so well, way better than any other character by far. So Jigglypuff, as most people will know, has 6 jumps. She has her normal, short hop or fall jump, but then in the air, whereas most characters just have 1 double jump, or I guess Kirby has multiple double jumps as well, but it's going to be a long time before we talk about Kirby. But yeah, so she has 5 jumps in midair, and they do give different heights. The first jumps give more heights than the last few. It's a progressively less height, but overall, that combined with her very slow falling speed makes it so that she can stay in the air for very, very long periods of time. Peach can stay in the air for very long periods of time too, but Peach is far more limited in the air. She has float, but float you can't adjust your height with. Like once you float, you're pretty much locked into that height until you stop or double jump or whatnot. Whereas Jigglypuff can keep kind of weaving up and down and back and forth way, way faster than Peach can. Because Jigglypuff actually has really, really good aerial mobility. Like she moves side to side in the air extremely well. And actually many characters do not have good aerial mobility. For example, Fox, Falco, and Sheik all actually have fairly bad aerial mobility. Now, Fox is manageable because he has good running speed, and one of the great things about Melee, and actually one of the reasons why it's actually, I think, in my opinion, a much better game than Brawl and Smash 4, is actually the very specific reason that when you are running, and when you jump, you actually keep a lot of your speed from running when you jump. So for example, like Falcon, who has good air mobility anyway, but if you do a running full jump with Falcon, you'll go like across the entire stage. Whereas like if you do that in Brawl or Smash 4, you're barely going to get any extra speed from the run. So I don't know, it just kind of makes the game a little less fun. But Jigglypuff doesn't need to run and jump. She just has such good aerial mobility in general that she can jump up in place and still move side to side multiple times before she even hits the ground. So why is this important? Well, Jigglypuff can actually make use of this aerial mobility so well because of multiple moves, and the most notable is everybody's favorite move is her back air. Her back air is it's a fairly good move. It has a great hitbox, and we'll talk about hitboxes soon. But you can essentially back air multiple times, and you could back air with Jigglypuff using her multiple jumps multiple times, and you could do it in a way where it's actually safe on shield if you space it very well. So like you could do a back air where like just the tip of the back air is really hitting their shield, then most characters have no really way to punish that, and you can keep whittling down their shield. You can pressure really well, like if you have a kind of wall of back airs you could do to kind of push people towards the ledge and really force them to pick a bad option. You could do it to maintain space, just to control center stage, really to control any point of the stage, to control the ledge. It's a really, really useful tool, and it's not a perfect move. There are some issues with it. For example, it's not very fast. It's frame 9, I think, and it only has 3 active frames, which is actually, I looked it up before this video, and it's actually worse than I thought. It's actually quite slow, and Jigglypuff also has a frame 4 jump squat, so I think that would mean that it's almost like 13 frames out of shield, so it's not a good out of shield option whatsoever. But there is another game mechanic that we'll explain that is actually makes it an even better move than you actually might think. And this is a mechanic called Hitbox Drift. Not many people really know about this mechanic or really refer to it, so I'm not sure if Hitbox Drift is the proper way to refer to it, but I haven't really heard of it by any other name. It's actually a very important but subtle game mechanic that most people don't know about, as I said. Basically, if you do an aerial, I mean really any move, but more specifically an aerial, the direction that you're moving while you do the aerial actually affects the size of the hitbox that you're sending towards the opponent. And so if you're moving towards the opponent with an aerial, the hitbox will actually get smaller because it's drifting behind you as you move towards them with it. But if you retreat with an aerial, the hitbox will drift behind you, so the hitbox that's ultimately facing the opponent is a lot larger. So like Jigglypuff can jump up and then she can do a back air and retreat with the back air as the back air is coming out, and because of the hitbox drift, the hitbox will grow bigger towards the opponent as it trails along Jigglypuff's like foot, I guess. And that makes it a really, really good hitbox. And multiple characters can use this. The probably second best example of hitbox drift that's useful is Falcon's Nair. Falcon's Nair has a really, really good hitbox, but it's actually not quite as good if you like approach with it. Like if you do that running short hop Nair with Falcon, the hitbox is actually not going to be very good because especially Falcon's moving so fast. The hitbox drift will make it so that a lot of the hitbox is actually going to be behind him, which you don't want. But if Falcon short hops backwards and nairs at the same time, the hitbox will trail off towards the opponent, assuming you're facing them, and it'll actually get quite a lot bigger. So this is very important for multiple characters, but especially important for Jigglypuff. This is also not just some obscure tech just for like 2 characters. Every character makes use of this. Sheik, for example. In the Fox Ditto, it's actually very useful for Fox because a lot of Fox Ditto approaches just involve a lot of nairing. And I think Hacks actually does this. If you nair with Fox and you retreat with the nair and the other person comes with a nair and they approach with the nair, your nair will actually beat out their nair completely just because your hitbox drift is actually going to give you the bigger hitbox. It'll be smaller on the other side of you, but that doesn't matter because you just want to have it bigger the way you're actually facing the opponent. So actually in Melee there is game mechanics that actually make it better to actually not approach people, which is kind of interesting because you would think that'd be more of like a Brawl or a Smash 4 thing, but there is a lot of credibility to playing conservatively in some situations in Melee, more than you might think. Bear isn't perfect though. There is some counters to it, like Jigglypuff in general doesn't have a projectile. She is, out of the top 5 characters, there's only 2 of them that don't have a projectile, her and Marth. Not the top 5 is a very specific number or anything, but this can be a big problem because of camping. If Jigglypuff is getting shot by Fox lasers, she doesn't have a ton of options without being very predictable other than just like, oh, I'm going to go over there and back air him because he's shooting lasers. Like, people complain that Hungrybox camps a lot, but really, if you watch him versus Armada's actually doing the majority of the camping, really just going around platforms and, you know, picking good spots for lasers, and, you know, it doesn't look as obvious because he's still attacking with the lasers, but really it's camping in a way, which is fine. I mean, you should play, you know, the best way to win, and, you know, that's what I'm all about as well. But not having a projectile can be difficult for Jigglypuff, but at the same time, because she is so fast in the air, it makes up for it a little bit compared to like Peach. Like if you watch Armada versus Leffen sets where Armada's Peach, and even if you look at most sets honestly of Armada, Leffen, Peach, Fox, Armada wins, but right before Armada really started to play more Fox, Leffen kind of got a hold of the Peach matchup and realized that Peach is both slow on the ground and slow in the air. So Peach is pretty screwed if you're laser camping, and I've played a bit of Peach versus laser camping Foxes, and it's really, really tough. And the Jigglypuff Fox matchup is really tough as well, but laser camping is not as bad. And if you actually watch some more recent sets of like Meteor versus Hungrybox, Meteor will laser, thinking that like, oh well, Jigglypuff is so slow, she's never really gonna be able to get to me in time to punish the lasers. But Hungrybox just gets right up to Meteor every time, and then Meteor's cornered on the ledge, and he ends up dying for it. So the laser camping strategy is really good for Jigglypuff, but it's not as good as it is versus Peach, because Jigglypuff is at least really, really fast in the air and has more options to actually come in and stop it. However, the issue is that shielding is actually quite an effective strategy versus Jigglypuff, because she doesn't have a lot of... The main thing she can do against shielding is to just kind of back air pressure and kind of force the opponent to drop shield and go away and start doing something else. Because she really can't grab in many situations just because it's so slow. For Jigglypuff to grab, she would either have to run up and grab, and her running speed is really, really slow, or she would have to land and grab, which is a very long process to actually land and grab. And Hungrybox did this a lot. It's called the Tomahawk grab, where you just kind of do an empty jump to landing and then grabbing. But even more recently, you can watch some sets where it's actually not been working out quite as well for Hungrybox. Even though every other thing about him playing Fox has been working out pretty well. The Tomahawk grab is very easy to react to and kind of predict. And once you said that Jigglypuff is coming and she's going to land right next to you without throwing out a move, you could pretty much tell, alright, she's going to go for a grab. And you know, you could spot dodge or buffer a roll, or just roll in general. You don't even need to buffer a roll, and you could pretty easily tell what's going to happen. My favorite counterplay to Jigglypuff's back air walls is running shield. It's actually a very, very underused technique. The idea is that you run up to Jigglypuff and you get as close as possible to Jigglypuff, and then you shield. It sounds pretty counterintuitive, like why wouldn't you run up with an attack? You know, why run up with shielding? But it's actually really effective because for Jigglypuff's back airs to be completely safe on shield, she needs to space them super well, as I talked about, and especially with the Hitbox Drift, that's a very important thing. But if you run right up to Jigglypuff as she's back airing you, and she gets that bad hit of the back air where it's like right next to actually Jigglypuff's hurt box, then you could actually punish that. And the characters who want to do this are usually characters with faster running speeds and faster out of shield options, because it's not amazing, but especially Fox and Sheik, I think, are very, very useful, can make use of this technique pretty well. You just run up to them, shield, and shield comes out in one frame, by the way. It's not full size in one frame, but when you press the R button, whether you hard press it or soft press it, your shield will come out in one frame, which is extremely useful. And this can throw a lot of Jigglypuff players off, and it can be actually a lot better than approaching with a hitbox, because if you run in with like a Fox Nair, your Nair is going to get beaten up by the back air every time, but your shield won't. Your shield can take a lot of back airs, so that's one option you have against the back air wall that most people overlook or don't know about. But back air is not the only thing that makes Jigglypuff great. She has just quite a lot of good moves. It's actually quite, like, if you didn't know about anything about this game, it's pretty surprising what some of her moves do. Her other aerials are quite good as well. Pretty much every one of them has a lot of use. Nair is very good. It's not extremely good, but it has some edge guarding uses. Like it's pretty good versus Spacey side B. It's just one of those long-lasting, good, solid Nairs. It's not very powerful, but it's a decent move. You can do Nair to rest. I'm not exactly sure the specifics of Nair rest, but I know it's kind of. I'm not sure if it's like a real combo or if it's just like a frame trap or something that you just like do and it could work. But I'm sure Jigglypuff players can enlighten me on that. But it's a thing, and it's just a good, decent move in general. Forward air is just kind of a more it's actually pretty similar to Nair, other than it's more powerful and it's good for edge guarding. And you could do the Wall of Pain, pretty similar to back air, where you just kind of keep fairing and fairing and fairing, particularly with an opponent off stage. Pretty decent priority, and I know priority is not like a real thing. Maybe I'll explain that a little bit in the future. But you also have up air, which is actually a really good up air. Jigglypuff's up air is really fantastic, other than it's not a huge it doesn't have a huge like wide hitbox like Marth's up air, so it's not too easy to juggle opponents with it. But it's one of those really nice moves where it has a dual use. You can combo with it at low percents, sometimes into rest as well. Even on like floatier characters, Marth is not too floaty, but you could do like falling up air to immediate jump and rest, which is a nice setup, and you could do up air to rest on Spaceys, or just fast fallers in general. And it could actually kill at pretty reasonable percents, like the 130s, 140 range, or even lower if the character is more floaty, or maybe a little higher if they're more of a fast faller, but it kills at pretty reasonable percents. And it's a really nice move to have. And there's also down air. Down air is a very, very good move for Jigglypuff because it actually combos. It's one of the really few. No other down air really combos quite like it, because you actually want to hit opponents with it on the ground, and then you could actually lead up. You can follow it up into grab. You can follow up into up smash, and you could actually follow up into rest as well, which you don't see very often, but it is a real thing. And having those combos available to Jigglypuff every time she is coming towards the ground is a super good option. You see Hungrybox all the time do like down air to grab, and he'll do like back throw on Spaceys, or on Peach if he gets a down air at like 100, that's a guaranteed up smash, and it's just such a nice little option you have. The other use for down air is that it's this list isn't about teams. Teams, you might have a different tier list in general, or doubles. Some people call it doubles. I call it teams. I think that sounds more fun. But yeah, you can actually save people with down air, because down air is such a weak move that like you can, with Jigglypuff, you can down air someone as they're recovering, and it's so weak that they'll pretty much have the chance to up B again right away. So that's not really considered for this tier list, but it's an interesting thing to note about down air. There's some moves, there's like other moves that are like that as well, like Peach's down air, you can use for a very, very similar purpose. So the other move that everyone knows about with Jigglypuff is of course Rest, her down B. It's a one frame move that has actually quite a lot of invincibility too, and there's a one frame move is very, very fast. It's pretty much just instant. Really, I think there's only 3 other one frame moves in the entire game. There's the 2 Shines, Fox and Falco, and then there's Game & Watch, who has his up B, I think it's called Fire. So there's only 4 characters that have one frame moves, and 3 of them are in the top 5, so you can get an idea of how crucial that is. So not only is it invincible, but of course it's so powerful. It's one of the most powerful moves in the game. It'll kill pretty much anyone at around 25% at the most. You know, maybe on Dreamland if you're like Donkey Kong and you're getting hit all across Dreamland and you have really good DI, maybe you could live a little longer. But for the most part, if you get Rest at above like 20%, you're pretty much dead. And there's a lot of setups for Rest too. I talked about up air, I talked about down air to Rest. You can also do up throw to Rest on Fox and Falco, but you can DI out of that pretty easily. If you hold left or right on the control stick, you'll do something called automatic smash DI. As long as you're holding that, when you actually get grabbed and thrown, you will go really far to the left or right. And you just want to hold straight to the left or right, and you'll do automatic smash DI, and just hold onto it until you actually can see that it worked. And a lot of people struggle with that, and I get it because it's like tournaments are a little bit more stressful, and maybe your reaction time won't be quite as good in a tournament. I tend to play the opposite, actually. I tend to play my best in high pressure tournament situations, which I'm quite happy about. Like, if you play me in friendlies, I'll have a very hard time taking them 100% serious, but then in like tournament, I'm literally like getting every single percent I can possibly get in every opportunity. So some people do play a lot worse in tournament, but fortunately I play a lot worse in friendlies, and I play a lot better in tournament, but everyone's different. But for example, like when I played Hungrybox, even in friendlies, I played him multiple times through the years, and the last time I played him, I tried playing a lot of Fox, and he was winning the games, but pretty much every time I was getting the up throw DI. And I was also getting another option you could do with Jigglypuff is the jab reset to Rest. Jigglypuff's jab is really, really weak, and that's actually a really great advantage because when you jab reset with Jigglypuff, which is jabbing someone when they miss attack and forcing them to just do that slow get up, having a really weak jab is really nice because it makes it a lot harder for them to smash DI it or pick like a different option, like roll when they get jab reset. Really, for the most part, jab resets are super reliable with Jigglypuff's jab, and but even that, you can avoid that by just hitting all your attacks, and I think that's actually something that people need to do a little bit better, especially Meteor King, actually. Meteor King misses a ton of attacks versus Hungrybox. Not to call out Meteor King, but yeah, I think you should try other characters in that matchup, to be quite honest, like Marth or Sheik. But so those are some setups right there. You also have the other really good setup for Rest is up tilt. Up tilt can combo into Rest into almost, you know, quite a lot of characters actually. You can combo into Rest against floaties at pretty low percent, which is really, really nice. Like when you get a kill at Peach on like 30, that's pretty insane, compared to like Marth, who kills Peach at like 200. And on fast fars, it can combo into Rest as well. You need to get them to a little bit higher percent because they fall fast, and it's hard to really combo into that at such a low percent because they're not going to go very high. But at like 50%, you could do up tilt to Rest on Spacies, which is very, very nice. And there is something you could do against Rest, as most people know. Typically, when you die from a Rest, if you're not like holding the control stick in any direction, you'll actually die off the top, which is really bad actually because you play the star KO animation essentially, and that means that when you respawn, Jigglypuff will have probably already have woken up. But what you can do is just actually hold down on the control stick whenever you get rested, and you'll pretty much always die off the side really, really quickly, and that'll give you plenty of time to come back and punish Rest. And as you can see, many characters can actually punish Rest pretty damn well. We talked about Peach in one of my earlier videos, but Fox especially can charge up smash, which kills Jigglypuff at pretty hilarious percents. Ice Climbers can wobble, Falcon can knee or Falcon punch. Many characters have very good Rest punishes, and many characters don't. Like Sheik's Rest punishes, Sheik can get a lot of damage, but really can't get a kill at pretty low percents or combo into a kill, which is unfortunate. But like Marth can tipper down smash or charge side B. Tipper down smash is nice if you are responding with Marth, because it's a lot quicker than charging the side B. It's actually a little bit easier if you're facing away from Jigglypuff for some reason to get the tipper down smash. I might have talked about this in the Marth video. Some other great things about Jigglypuff are pretty obvious. Like, she's really good at edge guarding. She's not fantastic at edge guarding, but she's quite good at it. The reason I don't say she's fantastic at it is because the problem with her jumps, and this is actually a problem with Jigglypuff in general, is that even though she's so great in the air, she actually can't move up and down in the air very quickly. She has a very slow fast fall speed, so if like Fox up B's from very low, Jigglypuff might not be able to get down there in time to hit it. She might have to kind of focus on wherever Fox ends up from the Firefox, which is a little bit harder, because if you just go down there and hit the Firefox, they're gonna die no matter what. But if you have to rely on like figuring out what angle they're gonna pick, it can get a little bit harder. And like Mango, for example, Mango usually recovers high versus Jigglypuff, so you have to pretty much back air the place where Fox is gonna land every time. And back air is not that very strong of a kill move. Like it'll kill at 100 if they have really bad DI, but even Fox can live to like 140 pretty regularly on most stages if he DIs back air up and in. It's really not that powerful of a kill move, to be quite honest, but it's still a very good move in general for edge guarding. And the problem with Jigglypuff not being able to move up very quickly is also a problem with platform camping and just being able to catch opponents on platforms in general. Like Fox and Falco can get up to top platforms very, very quickly because their jumps go so fast, just vertically speaking, whereas Jigglypuffs are so slow. And Peach has this problem too. We'll talk about that more in the Peach video. There are also a lot of things about Jigglypuff that I think are extremely unoptimized, and even Hungrybox is not a very, technically speaking, optimal Jigglypuff in terms of doing every single possible thing that you can do with Jigglypuff. I would say that Hungrybox is a very, very strong fundamental player, and I think that's his biggest strength. Not that he doesn't have some really cool Puff tech and things that he invented with Puff, that he does, but there's a few things you could do with Jigglypuff that I pretty much see no Jigglypuffs are doing. You can, for example, like most you'll never see this Jigglypuffs do this. If a Jigglypuff player is shielding on a platform, let's say a battlefield platform, and a Marth is going to up tilt that shield, Marth's up tilt has some lag at the end of it. So what Jigglypuff can do is, after she gets hit on shield with the up tilt, Jigglypuff can actually shield drop and then rest the Marth to punish the up tilt on shield, which is insane. Like, most Marth players wouldn't think that it would be a guaranteed death if they up tilted a Jigglypuff shield who was on a platform. Like, most Marths would just do that right away without even thinking. But Jigglypuff can actually rest that with a very well-timed shield drop. But you never really see that. There's also downer to rest, which you don't really see Hungrybox doing pretty much ever. You pretty much usually see him downer to grab. And I can understand it. Like, that's kind of hard to do, and if you miss a rest, you're pretty screwed. But it's something that really should be considered. What else is there really? Oh, there's another really cool one. I talked about this one, I think, briefly in one of the earlier videos. You can Meteor Cancel really quickly with Jigglypuff and actually punish the Meteor Smash with rest. So, just an example, let's say Falcon down airs Jigglypuff, just like the Stomp. If Jigglypuff meteors pretty quickly when the window becomes available, I think it's after 8 frames of hit stun, you can Meteor Cancel and jump out of the hit stun. You can actually rest Falcon on his down air lag. Even though he hit you with the down air, you can actually still rest him after getting hit by it, which just blows my mind. I'll link that video in the description because I think it's really, really cool, the little tutorial showing that. But those are some things that you don't really see with Jigglypuff that you could see a little more often. But while Hungrybox doesn't necessarily do those things, he does other things that Jigglypuff players don't. Like, for example, he's a lot better at edge guarding and zoning than most Jigglypuff players, so that's something to that's really what can take him so far, as well as just so much experience and fundamentals. One of the most polarizing things about Jigglypuff is that she can either survive for a very, very long time or die at extremely low percents. And she could die at very low percents for 2 reasons: because she is floaty and she doesn't fall very fast. So that makes it so it's very easy to kill her off the top through things like Fox up smash, Ice Climbers up smash, you know, things like Falco shine off the top, Marth up tilt. She'll die pretty early from all this because she's floaty, and she's also light, so she'll die off the side from moves like back airs or forward smashes pretty early off the side. If you don't know, I think I've explained this before, but generally your floatiness or fall speed determines how fast you die off the top, and your weight determines how quickly you die off the sides. So for example, Samus is very, very heavy, so she'll live pretty long off like the left and right sides of the screen, but you can kill her pretty early off the top because she is very floaty. And Fox is the opposite. Fox is extremely light, so he'll die off the sides or the bottom of the screen, but he'll live pretty long from things like up smashes and stuff because he falls so fast. But Jigglypuff is lacking in both those departments, so you can kill her very early with vertical kill moves or horizontal kill moves. But at the same time, she has a very, very good recovery. Jigglypuff can pretty much almost always make it back to the stage. Very, very few characters can really edgeguard her. I would really only say that 2 characters can, with any reliability whatsoever, edgeguard Jigglypuff, and that would be Fox and Sheik. Fox can Shine Spike Jigglypuff, but the issue is that you need probably 2 or 3 shines to kill Jigglypuff because she can use her Rising Pounds. Her side B move Pound, you can actually angle it up or down, and if you do a angled up pound in between every one of your double jumps, you'll get quite a lot of height. And also in melee she has access to the air dodge, which kind of serves as her up B. Sing isn't very useful. Sing, her up B doesn't help with recovery other than the fact that you can grab ledges backwards with it, which is somewhat useful. You can also actually grab the ledge with it very quick in general if you run off stage and Sing, but you don't see that very often because it's pretty easy to mess that up and die. The reason Sheik can edgeguard Jigglypuff to some extent is because of needles. If Jigglypuff is below ledge height and Sheik just keeps needling over and over and over, Jigglypuff won't really have any time to do her jumps fully. Every time she jumps, she might just kind of have her jump get eaten away by a needle and lose a lot of momentum. With that said, both those characters can usually not edgeguard Jigglypuff. Like, for the most part, she'll make it back. But if there are some situations where Jigglypuff is in a bad spot, kind of near or under the ledge, either one of those characters can force Jigglypuff to either just kind of run out of jumps and have to admit that she can't make it back to the stage, or do a really bad air dodge, which they can hit with an aerial. Like Fox can shine it again, or Sheik can do a forward air, which with mixed results. You know, sometimes like if they have to do if Sheik's doing the forward air and Puff is only at like 50, she can DI it up and come back with some Rising Pounds. But at the very least, you can get some extra damage that way, which is a really nice thing. Especially for a character who dies at just low percents, the damage is very, very helpful. The other issue with Jigglypuff is she actually shares a similar issue with Sheik, where she doesn't have great options against crouch canceling. Like if you hit a Fox with like forward air at 0 with Jigglypuff, it's not going to be a safe move. Like most of her moves are pretty crouch cancelable. They won't knock opponents down until like 40 or 50%, which can actually be a big problem, especially versus Falcon. One of the reasons I think Falcon can stay competitive in the Jigglypuff matchup is just because he's so heavy, and at low percents, Jigglypuff really has a hard time hitting him safely without kind of getting her moves just eaten up by his crouch cancel. But at the same time, Jigglypuff can space back airs and just kind of pick her spots very carefully to weave around or just work around that crouch cancel percent. To get them into a percent at like 50-60% onward is where Jigglypuff really thrives, because you can do up air combos, forward air, leads into different things. A lot of people complain about Jigglypuff's back air leads into itself so well, but the main reason for that is because most people DI it up and in because they think it's really more powerful than it actually is. If you actually just DI Puff's back air just neutrally, like you don't hold the direction on the control stick, or even better, you can DI it down and away, or smash DI it down and away, it won't combo really at all. But at the same time, that's not always so great, because if you're DIing it down and away off stage, then that's going to put you in an even worse situation. So, you know, it's kind of a catch-22, I guess. Is that the right use of that phrase? I'm not sure. But I think it is. But the other great thing about rest is, of course, if Jigglypuff grabs the ledge for some characters like Falcon or Sheik, and they're far away enough where they have to land on stage, Jigglypuff has a pretty free rest versus those characters once they land on stage with the that landing lag. So that's just one thing to consider. I know we're kind of talking about Jigglypuff's flaws now, but that's another use of rest that's pretty apparent. So I think that's most of what we can say about Jigglypuff. We'll go through our matchups before we end this off for now. As in terms of me, I used to play Jigglypuff a decent amount. I've never been a Jigglypuff main in Melee. For a long time, I really didn't like Jigglypuff in Melee because I mained her in 64 for many years. And even though she's a lot better in Melee, she controls a lot different in Melee as well. Her aerial mobility is different. Her like in Smash 64, Jigglypuff more wants to focus on like forward airs and stuff, whereas it's more about back airs in Melee, and that just wasn't very intuitive to me. But eventually around 2013, 2014, I had a pretty decent Jigglypuff, I would say. But now my Jigglypuff is probably not as good because I honestly don't find her too fun to play. Like, even as a more conservative player, like in terms of my play style, I don't find her too fun to play compared to like Sheik or so. And I think a lot of viewers of Twitch streams will agree with me that people don't love seeing Jigglypuff. I actually do like fighting against Jigglypuff a lot, and I do like seeing Jigglypuff. I do like watching Jigglypuff to some extent, especially Hungrybox is fun to watch just because it's so hard to overcome those that Fox matchup and other matchups as well. So speaking of Fox matchup, we'll go through the matchups. Her Fox matchup is pretty bad, honestly. I think it's probably around 60-40 or maybe slightly worse than that. But it's a pretty convincing 60-40. The main issue is that she can die so early to things like up throw upper and up smash, and it's so easy for Fox to get that quick percent on her to like 40 or 50 or so, to the point where she'll die from things like that. So, but if you have really good spacing in that matchup, you can trick Fox and bait him into different things, and there's some answers to it. But when people say that like Puff carries Hungrybox against these Foxes, that's a little absurd, because it is definitely a pretty tough matchup. It's a little bit better in the PAL version because Fox is lighter, and his recovery moves don't go as far, and his up smash is weaker, and his down smash is also weaker. His forward air is better, but that's not too useful. But this is an NTSC list, so that's not taken into consideration. But it's interesting to note. I think Puff actually doesn't do as good versus Falco as people think. It's probably roughly an even matchup. If Falcos were really, really good, I think it could be slight Falco favor. Lasers are really good versus Puff, and Falco has some pretty creative punishes on Puff and can kill her pretty early on certain stages with Sean at the top. But unfortunately, there really isn't a Falco player that is as good as Hungrybox is with as with Jigglypuff. So a lot of people just see that matchup and just assume that Falco is not good versus Puff. But in general, Falco is good versus floaties, but he's not as good versus floaties as he is versus fast fallers. His toolset is more really focused on comboing fast fallers rather than floaties, but there is a lot of different floaty combos, and you can go back and watch some sets with PPMD versus Armada and Hungrybox where he actually combos them a lot better than you would think with Falco, and I definitely wish we would see more PPMD. In recent years, if you watch the sets versus him versus Hungrybox, he gets kind of wrecked, but maybe he can come back to greatness someday. I still believe. But yeah, so Falco does better than people think, but it's a roughly even matchup. Maybe slight Falco favor in theory, but you don't really get to see that very often. Sheik, I think, is around 50-50. People really think that Sheik has a hard time in that matchup, but I think it's actually fairly decent for Sheik. Sheik can camp very well. She can do the running shield strategy that I mentioned. Needles are super good versus that matchup. In that matchup, she can down smash Jigglypuff's crouch, which is if Jigglypuff is at a percent where her crouch cancel is not an issue versus the down smash, then Sheik's down smash is actually quite good versus Jigglypuff. And not to go super in detail with that matchup, but I think it's a little bit better for Sheik than people think. But Jigglypuff is a huge threat, and I think it's at least around even or so. I could see it slight in either direction. Marth, in theory, I think would beat Jigglypuff a little bit, but you don't get to see that very often as well. But Marth has some stuff like off down throw. You can do pivot tipper, which is really, really cool. And in general, you can outspace Jigglypuff's moves a little bit better than most characters can. It's just kind of hard to execute with Marth, which is the unfortunate thing. But if Marths play that matchup well, I think it could actually be really tough for Jigglypuff. Peach, I think Jigglypuff does super well versus. At lower or medium levels of play, it might not seem that bad for Peach, but at high levels of play, Peach kind of has to make hard reads just to get a hit on Puff, which is really, really bad. And she also can't kill Puff very early, which is a real problem for her. Ice Climbers I used to think did pretty well versus Puff, but in recent years, Hungrybox has kind of figured that matchup out so well, to the point where Ice Climbers can't really hit Puff that easily, just period. We'll talk about them more with Ice Climbers, but I do think Puff probably slightly wins that matchup at least. I mean, like I said, with Falco, there's not any Ice Climber players who are as good with Ice Climbers as Hungrybox is with Puff, but I think I would give Puff a slight edge. Puff versus Falcon is pretty hard to say. I think almost no one can really say truly. I don't think there's very, very few people who can have a good opinion on that matchup and back it up with experience, but it could be anywhere from slight Puff to slight Falcon. And Pikachu I don't think does very well versus Puff, because honestly Pikachu needs to make super hard reads in the matchup similar to Peach. Not as bad, but you know, Pikachu has the up smash, which people say, oh, well, Pikachu is great versus Jigglypuff because up smash kills at super low %, but there's not really any setups to up smash, so you know, good luck with that. It's kind of tough for Pikachu, but it's not as bad for Pikachu as it could be. The rest of the cast, Jigglypuff generally does super well versus. Doc actually does decent versus Puff, and we'll talk about that with Doc. Samus does pretty damn bad against Puff. Again, kind of has to make hard reads just to kind of hit Puff, and most of these characters don't have good options for back air. Young Link is actually kind of decent versus Puff because of the projectiles. Young Link does two things really well. He builds a damage well, and he camps well. Well, actually three things if you want to count camping as a separate thing. But he can do so much damage with the bombs, boomerangs, and arrows and crap like that, and get Jigglypuff up to like 70 or 80 pretty easily. And then you can do it's a difficult combo to pull off, but you can do bomb to down air, and that's it. That'll kill Jigglypuff at very reasonable %. So that's something to try. But you need some experience if you're going to do Young Link versus Puff. Really, the only time you will see that matchup is in some old videos of Armada's Young Link versus Hungrybox. For the rest of the characters, there's definitely some that do better than you might think. Actually, Game & Watch and Zelda do a little bit better than you might think, but they definitely don't beat Puff or really come that close to being even or anything. But I mean, Puff has some vulnerabilities that certain characters in the lower mid tiers can exploit more than you think, but still it's not too great for them. And Jigglypuff her only really horrible matchup is Fox, and even that's not too horrible, but it's still pretty damn hard. Try playing Puff versus a very good Fox, and you'll find very quickly that if you're not super experienced in the matchup, and I mean that literally super experienced, if you don't have a ton of experience in that matchup, you will struggle in that matchup for sure. And it's even playing as Fox versus Puff, I enjoy that matchup quite a bit, but I don't enjoy it too much from the other side. Yeah, it's really all I have to say about Puff. I mean, I could talk a little bit more about her, but I think that's pretty much all the key points. But yeah, let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Absolutely. These videos are actually kind of hard to make. There's a lot of planning that has to go into them, even though it's not too editing intensive. I have to think about these videos a lot, and involves a lot of re-recording and just trying to make sure I really articulate my points well throughout a long video, which is not actually too easy. So I do appreciate all the really good feedback from you guys, all the likes, comments, and new subscribers actually, which is really, really nice to see. So thank you for everyone who recently joined the Andrew Nation by subscribing. I guess we can start calling it that, Andrew Nation. It's a cool little name. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. As I said, like, comment, and subscribe, all the fun stuff, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter down below. I might stream on Twitch over the summer a little bit, depending on how my hands are, and I do still want to make a video talking more about that in detail, but I would think if I streamed, I'd probably either do speedruns, particularly Majora's Mask. I have been learning the speedrun of that game in my spare time, but maybe RuneScape or Smash as well, depending on what I feel like doing and what my hands are capable of. So we'll see you guys in the next video. I'm sure many of you guys are very excited to hear about what I think of this lovely lady. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. So I will see you in part 6 as soon as I can manage. I got finals next week, but we'll see what I can do.